Hello and welcome to Philippa Squared, Parenting by Design. I'm Philippa Scott and I'm joined today by my beautiful co-host Pippa Cox. Hi Pippa.
Hello, Philippa.
We have an incredible treat for you all. We have another Philippa on the podcast with us today, Philippa Robinson. So, and I know you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get confused. How am I going to keep it all straight? But it's fine. She has a British accent, so you'll know who's talking. Okay. Welcome, Philippa.
Hello, hi, Pippa. Hello, Philippa. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I sound a little bit different, so hopefully that will be a bit easier to follow.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Philippa, tell us a little about you and your story, how you came to be working in the space that you are and why you're passionate about the things that you are. Tell us your story.
Ooh, so, I grew up the eldest of four kids. I was the only girl. I was the eldest, alcoholic mother. So I very quickly got into people pleasing, trauma. I didn't know any of this at the time. Of course, I was busy surviving. So time at home wasn't brilliant. I left at 18, went to university, did a law degree. Didn't know why, but just thought I'll go and do a law degree. Never wanted to be a lawyer. And here I am some 30 odd years later, still a lawyer, in part. I was a lawyer for in big London law firm, and then sort of moved to different areas of the UK, different cities. So I've been a lawyer for a long time. That very much kept me in the place that I was when I left home, of people pleasing, trying to fit in. Is this me? Oh my God, what is life all about? Sort of thing. I settled in Bristol eventually, which is where I live now. I've lived here for 20 odd years. I stopped practicing the law in 29. No, I didn't. In 2011, and sort of segued sideways into doing risk and compliance and all sorts of very boring, but I quite sort of like nerd out on it sort of stuff. And in 2019, as we went into 2020, the pandemic, a lot of things changed for a lot of people. And I lost all my freelance work that I was doing at the time. And I decided to try something different. And so, first of all, I wrote a book. So I wrote a book, which I suppose is my memoir. I find memoir a really weird word, but it is my story. So apparently memoir is the word to use. So I wrote my story so far. I've got two podcasts. The first one, I did 100 episodes solo, and then I moved to doing another podcast that I do now with somebody else. I'm a coach. I coach highly sensitive people, mainly women, who are looking for their true self underneath everything else that's happened to them in their life. So it's very much my story, really. I'm leading the way for other people who want to do sort of the work that I had to do. And I'm also still part-time a risk and compliance officer and partner in a small law firm here in Bristol. And what really lights me up, funnily enough, is not the risk and compliance work, but is the talking to people, the helping people see there is a different way to be in the world. When you get to the stage that I got to, for lots of different reasons in 2017, where I was just like, God, there must be more to life than this. I cannot carry on the way I am, because apart from anything else, I'm really not very nice to live with. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and I don't want to screw my kids up. So that led me to therapy and kind of started the path to where I am today.
Amazing. Isn't it funny
That was
how
a lot. Sorry.
no, that's great. That's perfect. We love to hear the story. It's interesting how often people get into a space of teaching or coaching or therapeutic work because of the journey that they've had for themselves.
Yep.
And that's this, similar for myself. So you're really focused on this idea of doing our own work, and I love that because Pippa, what do we say on the program so much?
Got to do
Do
your
the work.
own work.
Right. So, Philippa, tell us how you got to a space and what happened for you in terms of doing your own work and how that's impacted you as a mother of two sons.
Mm. Well, yeah, so I moved to Bristol, as it won't surprise anybody who knows what it's like growing up in any sort of dysfunction, but sort of my sort of dysfunction. I had a series of like really disastrous relationships, but I got to Bristol, found a job that I stayed at for longer than the others had lasted because I'd always been moving around, searching, didn't know what I was searching for, but searching. Got married, but by then I was 34. So, quite quickly we were thinking about having children. So I turned 40 with two children under two, thinking, great, I've done it. I've got a career, I've got a husband, I've got two children, I've got, a house in a nice part of Bristol. We've even got oh no, we didn't have the dog then. We got the dog a little bit later. And I was thinking, right, this is what society tells me should make me happy. Finally, am I going to be happy? And I was far from happy. And, it felt like I had this ticker tape going across my forehead, like going, there must be more to life than this. That was going over and over and over in my head. Not immediately, not like on my 40th birthday or anything, but as I got more into my 40s and the kids got older, I love being a mum. Don't get me wrong, I love my kids. I love being a mum. But there was just something deep in me that was really dissatisfied. And then with that came the guilt of how can I have all this and not be happy? So then layering the guilt on top of the dissatisfaction and the just like, is this it? Is this what my life is going to be like? Because this doesn't feel good. And piling the guilt on top of that just ramped up the inner anger, the inner, like, it felt like I had this molten lava sort of churning away inside me. I would blow, tiniest little thing, I would go completely off, off on one. And there was a couple of times where I was having what I would describe as perhaps an out-of-body experience, where it felt like I was standing next to myself, looking at myself, being really vile in an argument with my husband, and thinking, wow, where is all that coming from? But still didn't really, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that it was all my childhood trauma sort of bubbling up. My kids were at that stage, the age that I was when my life started falling apart. So as a therapist then told me, no wonder it was getting worse then. And what happened in the end, my marriage was on the rocks quite a lot. We talked a lot about, are we going to do this? Are we going to carry on? And then in January 2017, I lost a lot of the sight in my right eye. I'd lost about 3/4 of the sight in my right eye. I now believe that was the universe giving me something that I couldn't ignore. I'd had plenty of signs before. I now recognize them as signs. I didn't recognize them as signs then. So I started a whole lot of treatment. I did get most of it back. They told me it was permanent, but I did end up getting most of it back about between 4 or 5 months later. But what had started was what Brené Brown calls a midlife unraveling. And I went to therapy because I didn't know what else to do. So I thought I'll find a therapist. Thought I'd probably need about 6 sessions and then everything would be all right, because that's all it takes, isn't it? She got me to then commit to 6 months, and 3 years later I left. Different, very different. And at the time, losing the sight of my eye was like I just thought things, apart from losing all the sight in both my eyes, I couldn't think of anything worse for me to happen to me. But now, really, it was definitely the sign post whatever it was that sent me kicking and screaming into doing my own work. But really, until that time, I didn't know I had work to do. I didn't know you could do the work. I didn't know that what was going on inside of me was the leftover feelings and energy all buzzing around from everything that had happened to me in the past, needing an outlet, needing to be released in lots of ways, at least take the lid off it and let some of the pressure off. I didn't know that is what was happening. And I also didn't know I could heal from it. And that, I think if I'd got to, by that stage, I was 46, 47. So I figure if I got to that stage, not knowing that healing is possible, change is possible, I figure maybe there are other people that might need to hear that, which is kind of why I tell my story.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. And I really resonate with your story, because I'd had lots of signs too. They'd discovered a brain aneurysm, and I'd had gallbladder stuff, and I had all these signs earlier on. And then I ended up with adrenal fatigue. And it coincided with the diagnosis of my third daughter being on the spectrum. And we discovered eventually that all of the children were on the spectrum, but it wasn't that the diagnosis itself was the problem. But as soon as I got that diagnosis, my adrenals went, oh, okay, well, we don't have to fight anymore. We don't have to keep going, because we have an answer now. So we're just going to tap out for a bit, have a little break, and you can just, figure it out on your own. And so I ended up, I was, for want of a better word, I was fucked. I had nothing in the tank left to give. And I thought I needed a new job. And so I went looking for a new job, one that wasn't quite so stressful and so many hours. And I actually didn't even know I needed therapy, because I'd done lots of personal development. I'd done lots of work. Like, I'd worked so hard for years on all my stuff, right? And then I found this job, and the job was for Judith Richards, doing TRTP, helping to bring therapists on to learn about it. And the more I learned, the more I'm like, well, I don't have any trauma, but I certainly have all the symptoms. So maybe I need to do that thing, right? And then it turns out, yeah, actually, I did have traumas. Some of them were little t, some of them were big. I didn't really think about the fact that my, boyfriend had committed suicide when I was 17 as trauma. But, that really, I just went on a spin for 3 years, but so we mitigate our trauma really well. And if we don't know that there's healing and so on, and I said to Jude in an email, I said, I don't care if you give me the job or not, but I need to do this thing, because I've got all the things you're talking about, but I still didn't resonate with the idea of trauma. So it's an interesting journey, isn't it, to be given all these signs and ignore them, and then something just smacks you in the face and says, wake up, bitch, it's time to do the thing.
Well, you've answered my question of whether I can swear, so that's good. Yeah,
we're Aussies, Philippa. Swearing is kind of par for the course.
good. Yeah, no. It's so interesting now looking back that how could I have not known? But all I did was look around me and see that what it felt like was everybody else doing life much better, much easier, being happier than me, which I suppose, made it really quite, I was very self-centered. Well, not self-centered, but all I could think of was me and what I wasn't doing or what I wasn't experiencing, and what was I doing wrong, and what did I need to change to make me appear to be having the sort of life that I wanted. And I thought I saw everybody else having, because I was just so in it that I couldn't see out of it, I think.
Yeah.
Because now I know everybody's not having a great time. Now I know, but that is all I could see, because I think I felt so broken that all I could see around me was examples of how everyone was doing better than me, and I was broken. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you'd met me, you wouldn't have known that's how I felt. I had, I didn't just have a mask on. I described that I had a suit of armor, that I was inside for total protection all the time. So nobody ever saw the real me. Nobody ever really, what they saw was this, probably, I reckon most people would have said confident, extrovert, intelligent lawyer, just getting on with it, funny, just a bit of, oh, look at her, she's got it all going on. But inside was very, very different. And going to therapy was the first time I'd ever really talked to anybody properly about what it had like being me when I was younger. Now, I've got 3 brothers, there's quite an age gap, but we all had very different experiences. And I have since discovered I'm highly sensitive, which makes a lot of sense of how I experience my childhood now. I don't know if they're highly sensitive. I have different sort of levels of relationship really with them all. I think one of them might be. In fact, I think he probably is. But so I menopause. Where was I going with that?
I feel you.
Yes. So sorry, I've completely forgotten where I was going with that. That's really annoying. But I'm learning to roll with it. Can we segue on to something else? I think. Thank you.
I have a question, Philippa.
We can edit some stuff out.
Yeah. So you're talking about how you had signs in the past that if you knew then that you needed to do the work, you would have gone, aha, so I need to do some work. Can you explain what those signs were? And so if anyone else can resonate with that.
What a good question. I think one I've already alluded to is this feeling that I felt that I was broken, or whatever word you can substitute quite a lot of words there, but I felt like I wasn't doing life right, or if only I could find that one thing that, maybe it was another course, maybe I needed to move job, maybe I needed to move where I live, just do that one thing that all of a sudden was going to make life slip into place. I think so that sort of thinking is quite it's not all or nothing thinking, but it's very much I just need that one thing and that's going to make it all okay. I think
so it's like the shiny little prize syndrome, that
sort of
you're feeling that. I'm just wondering if you're feeling that if something's not quite right, if there was just that one extra thing, one thing, then my life would be okay. Why isn't my life okay? There's just that one little thing,
and searching for what that one thing might be. For me, I realized that was a theme like all through my life, really. When I was a kid at home, it was, if I can just get out of here, everything will be all right. And then I got to university, which was better, but I didn't have the skills. All I'd learned was how to survive. I didn't know how to just be. So university was great, and well, it wasn't great, it was okay, but it sort of threw me into a whole other pot of other people, and I didn't really know how to be me there either. I never learned how to be me. And all I knew was how to put on a front, how to put on a face, how to try and fit in, how to try and be what everybody else wanted me to be. So I think if I'd recognized that this searching for the one thing that was going to make everything better, no one thing is ever going to make everything better. So I maybe if I'd come across saying, and I was thinking, oh, maybe that is me, and maybe there is something inside I need to address rather than something on the outside.
Yes.
Because what I really needed to do was find me inside. You know, and I don't know whether, I hope that's going to resonate with some
I love
people, this
that.
idea of finding self.
I love that because a lot of people, me included, we feel that searching. If only I have that that other thing, things will be better, things will be better, things will be better. And the one thing that I realized, and it took so many years to realize it, and you pointed out so beautifully, Philippa, is that you can look for it all you like outside. You got to go in. To get to know you, to get to know me, to get to know who we are, and to heal and to accept and to just be, so we can be the best versions of ourselves, not only for us and our partners and the fathers and the mothers of our children and our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, everybody. I love that. I absolutely love that.
I think the thing that comes up for me there is this idea, and I, you know, Pippa hit it on the head. You know, I was thinking as you're talking, that's all about external validation. It's about external motivation and so on. And you know, my degree is in sociology, right? So if we look at that sociological culture, or the sociological perspective of our current culture, and it all comes down, everything is extrinsic. How we teach our children in school is all about extrinsic motivation. You know, we don't have that. You know, it's not about the desire to learn. It's about, you know, getting the A, or it's about passing the grade, or it's about not being in the bottom half, or whatever it might be. It's all extrinsic in the motivation. And interestingly, I've been reading recently Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate's book, How to Hold On to Your Kids. And it's a really interesting look at what's kind of happening when our children become more peer oriented. But when we talk about how culture has set up that extrinsic motivation, it's really normal for us to think that what's going to make us happy comes from the outside. And, you know, that's, I guess the reason I want this to be really clear for people is it's not your fault that you are looking to the outside for all of this stuff, because that's what our culture has taught you will bring you happiness. You know, if you can have that pair of shoes, or if you can have those friends, or if you can have that grade, or if you can have that degree, or that job and that car and all the things, our whole economic world is set up to create that in you. What we're looking at here, and what we're asking you to do to be a better parent, to be a better person, is to really start to show up in what's intrinsic within you, what comes from within you that heals not just you, but can then create a new paradigm for your family that says, actually, everything you need is already there. You don't need to follow that pattern, that path, that thing in order to be the very best version of you. In fact, you don't need to be anything more than what you are today. You are enough. But embodying
Exactly.
that.
And that takes a lot of work.
Well, it does, because you fight. I mean, capitalism relies on us feeling the need to look outside ourselves and to acquire stuff, and you know, so we are fighting something very big to. And I'm not saying, you know, I don't live without, you know, I've got loads of stuff behind me. I live in a house. I've got a car. You know, I'm not immune to all that. But what I suppose I got to the stage where I've tried all that and I'm still not happy. So I've got to try something else because I really was vile to live with. And I remember once being a guest on a podcast, and it was about burnout. It doesn't really matter what it was about, but you know, the host said to me, "Wow, doing your own work, that's amazing. What a great mum you are." And I was like, "Oh, that was a real moment." I mean, you know, I love the idea that maybe I'm, you know, I would like to think that I'm a great mum. I mean, it's the big experiment, isn't it? We don't know till somewhere down the line whether what sort of job we've done, but you know, in my heart, I know I'm doing the best I can. But the idea that I'd taken all this time to do my work because I'd got to this place where I couldn't not do, and I just said, if I don't go to therapy, I'm going to have to leave because I am not screwing my kids up. I'm not having my kids grow up the way I did. Not that I was like my mother, but you know, and the idea that that actually could make me a good mum was a really lovely, it was a really lovely thing for that woman to say to me. Actually, it really stayed with me. And I think that's why I kind of like to talk about the work and how important it is, because the ripple effect is massive. It's not just me that benefits from it. I am so much nicer to live with than I was before. You know, my husband finds it a lot easier to live with me now. I mean, yes, our dynamic has had to change, but you know, and my kids reap the benefit, my friends, my colleagues, everybody gets a better version of me. So it's not just me. And you know, it, because I do know a lot of my friends have said that feels selfish to take that time for myself, to spend that money on myself, to go to therapy, to take the time that it needs. And you know, I would like people not to feel like they have to get to the stage where they've virtually lost sight in one of their eyes or whatever else it is that happens to us when we ignore these signs. You know, maybe there is a way that you can find to do little bits of the work until you do get to a stage where you can do more. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can do little bits along the way to guide, you know, to get you to where you need to be.
I think the beautiful thing is there that it actually impacts the people that you are. You know, we talk a lot, and we talk a lot about different modalities, obviously, and there are different ways to do it. And the process that I use is 3 sessions. That's it, done and dusted, 15 to 21 days. It doesn't have to take a long time, but it's still not an investment. Does that make sense? It's an investment of time and it's an investment of money. And I still get people go, oh, I don't know if I can take 2-3 hour sessions out from my little one. And what would you, if you came back 5 years from now and you knew that you could show up better because of 6 hours of your time, you know, that's an incredibly small investment, and you will spend more than 6 hours commiserating with yourself over the fact that you haven't done the work, and your children will have benefited no end. And what you spend in therapy now, your children won't have to spend in therapy later, right? Like, I've seen the difference in my children and my relationship with my children. And I only did the work, you know, 5-6 years ago. And my children, same as yours, sort of, you know, 15 to 21 now, they were very formative years, particularly with daughters and their mother. Like, sorry, because I have 4 girls. So that, and I have watched them change because I changed, right? It starts and ends with me, right? Whether I choose to acknowledge it or not, that's the fact. It starts and ends with me. And so whatever I'm doing for me, they get the benefit of. It's like if I choose to concentrate on my health so I cook better, they're going to get the benefit of it. If I choose to breathe properly from my diaphragm and into my stomach, they're going to get the benefit of that. If I choose to paint the house with non-lead paint. I'm just making shit up here, but like if I choose to do that, they're going to get the benefit. Doesn't matter what I choose to do for me, they'll either get the benefit or they're going to reap the consequences, because how I show up in my family is going to impact everyone. And so I can choose to do the therapy for me. And I have so many parents contact me. They're like, can you work with our kid? No, not until I've worked with you, because it actually starts and ends with you. And I almost never work with children, because once mum and dad are okay, kids are okay. Like, it starts and ends with us. As hard as that is, we can have kids who aren't aggressive. We can have kids who show up in school. We can have kids who orient to you and who have a secure attachment with you. And we can make parenting easier, but we have to do the work ourselves first. We can't put all of the emotional maturity onto our children and say, oh, well, that will get them to do the work.
Yeah, no. Exactly. And that's the point, really, because somewhere along the line, somebody has to do the work. And really, that's our job as parents.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, my boys are 16 and 18 now, and, they very much are following their path. They are not, they're definitely not people pleasers. They, and I love that. I mean, it's hard work sometimes, but I love that they are not trying to please me at the expense of themselves. That there is no element, I don't think, that, and we never know quite what's going on for them. They don't really know what's kind of going on. They won't, until they're a bit older. But they do not feel that they have to make certain choices because that's what I want. Because actually, what I want for them is what they want. So I really encourage them to go, well, what do you think? What do you think's best? Where do you think this is going? What I don't know, you want to go out with those friends, then how, I don't know, what's the plan, what plans have you made, how are you getting there, how are you getting back, do you need any help, do you need me to be part of that or whatever, but what do you think, and what are you sort of involved in? They're needing to take their own lead now, so I'm right behind them and I'm with them when they need me with them, if they need me to take them, or I don't know, talk about suggestions, but they're much more moving into themselves and what they do and working it out for themselves. And it's hard seeing them grow and grow apart and grow away, but also that's very much the natural thing that is to happen. They're only with us for a while, aren't they? And then they go off and do their own thing, and it's wonderful seeing them get to that stage where they feel they can do that. And what I recognize in them that I didn't have in me when I ran away to university at 18 is that they have much more of a sense of self, which I suppose I'm looking for it because that's my bag, but I'm loving seeing that develop in them.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
What's interesting about what you've said there is, again, referring back to hold on to your kids, Gabor Mate talks a lot about attachment and secure attachment being really important. But one of the things they talk about in that book is that dependence fosters independence. And, I've had this conversation with mums for 20 odd years about the idea that if you hold your baby, if you wear your baby for the first year or so, and you give them lots of love and, and cuddles, and it's all, all of that secure attachment, them knowing that you've always got them and that you're there, actually fosters independence. And when we're talking about teenagers, if we don't have that, or they don't have that knowing, that deep knowing that you love them, that they are secure in their attachment with you to the point of overflowing in their cup, they can't branch out into that independence. Their autonomy is crushed by the lack of dependent connection. And so but in order to have a dependent connection with a secure adult, the adult has to be secure in their own attachments and their own relationships with self and with the partner. And the two can't coexist. You can't be an adult who doesn't have secure connections and who doesn't have a secure connection to self and expect your child to have a secure connection with you. That's not how it works, you know?
No. And I didn't know that is what I was doing. I now know that is what I was doing, but I was reparenting myself as a late 40-year-old and giving myself the connection with myself that I didn't have with any of my parents. And that was, I don't know, it was just just what I didn't know. It was really interesting because actually what I did was I really tuned into my intuition. What do I need to do here? I read loads, I listened to loads of podcasts. So after I finished therapy, I was like, okay, I'm not weighed down by this childhood trauma anymore. I mean, it doesn't go away, but I'm not weighed down with it like I was. But now what? Who am I? And that's when I embarked on the whole self-coaching, I suppose, which is what led me into coaching eventually. But it's very much listening to podcasts, reading books, reading articles, devouring as much information as I could and using my intuition to work out what I was going to try. So I looked into loads of modalities. I didn't try everything. One of the best things that I did on my reparenting journey as a 47, 48-year-old woman was I bought myself a new cuddly toy. I bought myself a little giraffe, as a gift to my inner child. And I slept with that giraffe every night for 3 months. And I know this, everyone was going, what, at that age? But it's what I needed. I needed to cuddle up at night with something safe and secure, feeling, I suppose feeling loved, but I was loving myself. I was loving my inner child by giving her this little giraffe every night. And that was probably, I mean, I did loads of things, but that was one of the really big things that shifted my sense of self by reconnecting with me, the inner me, who didn't get what she needed when she was little, and reparenting her, which I kind of then, we joined back together again and became whole. And that is what has been a massive journey for me.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. It's an important part of doing the work is making, is actually connecting what does that young part of us need to think, feel, and experience. And in TRTP, we talk about this all the time. So, and I train therapists in TRTP. I'm part of the teaching team for Judith, but we talk about it, and I bring it back every single time. What does this client and the past client need to think, feel, and experience in order to be okay? And that when we think about that, though, we then need to, when we think about that for ourselves, or when we think about it for our children, if we can apply the same thought process, what does our child need to think, feel, and experience in order to be okay? What if we're toilet training a 2-year-old, what does our child need to think, feel, and experience in order to be okay in this situation? What did I not think, feel, and experience in order to be okay in that time, and provide that younger version of ourselves with that understanding, that grace, that love, and all the other things that we might have needed. Now, we don't have to do it blow by blow and experience by experience, but we need to actually provide that experience of what do they need to think, feel, and experience in order to be okay. And I think that there's a disconnect in terms of for a lot of people in terms of how we parent, because we're not thinking, because nobody did for us, what do they need to think, feel, and experience? We're not actually passing that forward and going, okay, well, what does our child need to think, feel, and experience in order to be okay in this situation? Because we're still so hurt and we're so disconnected from our intuition. That I'm going to harp on the book again, but the book talks about the idea that parenting shouldn't be hard, because we actually have the intuition to make it easy. But we are so disconnected from our intuition because of all the stuff that we have from our own childhood and experience of being parented, that we don't know how to trust that. We don't know how to show up in that space. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, this
huge
stuff.
It is huge, and we could go on for hours, I'm sure, but at its core, it is about connecting with self, like we've been talking about. And for me, my journey was, I didn't get what I needed when I was younger, and working that out. I didn't feel loved and I didn't feel lovable, so I needed to make that happen for myself, as an adult, to sort of heal that inner child. And I've gone all out to hopefully my kids feel loved and lovable, but also, what do they need as well? I mean, I needed something very basic because I didn't get that very basic thing met. But what do they need? That might be what I needed. What do they need? So now I'm sort of, as they're moving towards leaving eventually one day, hopefully, what do they need? What do they need to be able to move out into into the world? And they both have very different needs, and it's always changing. But now I feel like I can flex and adapt with all that. Now I'm not anywhere near as rigid. I used to have to plan everything because that was the only thing that made me feel safe, if everything was planned. And then the minute something changes that plan, gosh, everything was like, oh, such a drama. But I don't have anywhere near as much drama as they used to be in our life, because it's much easier to flex when you kind of, I don't know, I feel like I have this inner core rod now. It's not, but the steely is not quite the right word, but a solid core that is me, that doesn't get, I mean, might have to wave around in the wind a little bit sometimes, but the solid core in me is very solid. So I know who I am, and it makes life so much better.
Love that. And everybody around you.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah. I love it. What a beautiful story, Philippa.
Thank you.
And it just goes to show you how, when you recognize, and everybody needs to do the work, because we all grow up in this society with the big T traumas and little T traumas, the medium-sized traumas. I mean, you just have to live on a daily basis, and there's traumas every day.
Yeah.
And they get into our system. You know this, Philippa. Both of you guys know this. And so by recognizing that, and by accepting that, yeah, if I actually really do some work on myself, it makes me a lot more accessible, likable, lovable. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And a better parent, raising emotionally incredibly wonderful people that can go out and live an incredible life themselves.
Yeah. And for me, the big picture, if more of us do the work, we're all bringing our better version of ourselves out into the world. And how I mean, I know this is massively highfalutin sort of idea, but how much better would society and the world be if more of us did our work and brought that out into the world, rather than the hurt version of ourselves.
Totally.
We do have the capacity to change the world if we do the work. If enough of us do the work, we can change the world, and we can change how people show up in it.
Yep. And there's this beautiful concept of collective consciousness that is growing and growing and growing, which is fantastic.
And just before we end, something just came to my mind. So before I did the work, I didn't understand that what I experienced was trauma. So, we've talked about big T trauma, little T trauma. I didn't understand. I understood big T trauma, and I was like, oh yeah, my childhood was rubbish, but nothing really bad happened to me, is what I always used to say. So to then understand that the drip of emotionally unavailable parents and an alcoholic mother, and the chaos and the never knowing what was going to happen next, and the drip of all that was obviously it's you could put many labels on it, but it is trauma. And I heard so to understand that really helped me, and really helped me understand that I was healing from it. But I did hear somebody talking the other day that, in therapy in particular, but in any of those sort of healing modalities, we always used to talk about, okay, what happened? What's wrong with you is where we used to start off years ago. Then it's moved to, okay, what happened to you? And now it's also as much about, well, what happened around you? So, trauma comes from all angles, and actually you can experience trauma just by what is going on around you. Because, nobody really, nothing really awful happened to me personally, physically, whatever. It was much more emotional and mental. And that's what was going on around me. And that is trauma. So trauma is everywhere, is all I'm saying. Not to want to make everybody think, oh my God, I'm traumatized. That's not the point. But what I'm getting at is that there are probably things going on for us, things that have happened in our past that are affecting the way we show up today. And there are plenty of great people to help you look at that and help you heal from it, if that is what if that is what anybody listening wants to do.
I think I love what you said there, Philippa. I think it's actually, when I think about trauma, it's, well, how did you experience what was happening in your world, whether it was to you, around you, or whatever? How did you experience that?
Exactly.
Because it could have been, I talk to clients about the idea that, you might have been 2 and your mum went to hospital to have another baby, and you've been abandoned, and then this mummy comes back with a new baby and you've been replaced. So you've been abandoned and replaced. Now, was that reality? No, but that was your experience of it.
Exactly.
And not everybody's like that, obviously, and it depends on the other things going on that create that how you experienced it. Because unless there's support, unless there's unconditional love, unless there's a whole bunch of other things, then that perception, how you experienced that thing, can shape whether or not it was trauma for you or not. And so it's not what happened or how it happened, it's your experience of what happened. Yeah.
Exactly.
So and nobody on God's green earth can tell you how you experience something and whether or not that's valid or not, because that's how you experienced it. And that's why trauma is not subjective. It's why trauma is not you cannot compare your trauma to somebody else. It's how you experienced it, and that is valid. It's valid. And it will
and that brings us right back to where we started, because I said, I had 3 brothers. We all grew up in the same household, but I'm very sure we all had different experiences. 100%. And I'm the one who's talked about it the most. Now, I'm not saying I'm the one that's affected the deepest, but I had to do that work. And just because maybe if I'm the only one who feels like that and they don't, that doesn't mean I didn't experience it, because I absolutely did. And it was in my body. And it's not in my body anymore. So, or most of it isn't anyway.
Fabulous. Do you want to leave us with any last thoughts?
Gosh, I think we've covered it all. It's just I think the whole premise of this is that doing your own work is not selfish. It's really it's an investment in you, but it's an investment in everybody around you as well. It's, be it the time, the money, whatever it is that you need to invest to do the work. But it is and it's not always, it's not easy, but it's brilliant and it's worth it. And the more of us who do it, as we've already said, the more we are healing the collective. So
beautiful.
Do your work.
Here. Do the
work. Fabulous. I feel like we end the podcast on that quite often, but thank you both very much. The 3 Philippas, I don't know we're not Philippa Squared for this one, but we're Philippa something, and my mathematician brains cubed. There you go. See, thank you. So fabulous. Thank you very, very much. Follow along, everybody. Subscribe, share with your friends. Find us on our Facebook or Instagram page, Philippa Squared Parenting by Design. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got topic ideas or you really want to ask questions, please reach out and we'll be happy to support you. Thank you again. Bye for now, Pippa.
Bye bye, Philippa, and bye bye, Philippa.
Bye bye, both of
Bye,
you.
Philippa. See you all next week.